Welcome on LiveSafari here, everyone. My name's Brent. I've got James on camera with me. There's Scott and Andrew on the other vehicle, and Nikki and Eugene in final control. If those of you are new, you are sitting live with a herd of elephants with us on Arathusa Private Game Reserve in the Sabisa in South Africa. So wherever you are in the world, you are sitting on the back of my game drive vehicle. And this evening we're going to go on a sunset safari. Really excited to have you all with us. If you are new, we also, apart from being live, we are also interactive. So you're able to send us questions about what we're seeing in the bush, and you can do that by emailing us at questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. As you can see, we are with a nice breeding herd of elephants. We started off on that female who's moving a little bit further forward into this drainage line. There are lots of elephants around us. I've probably guessed between 20 and 30. And John, one of our zoomies who is watching the Arathusa cam, thanks very much. John spotted those ellies there around 1:30. We're not too far from the dam, so this is more than likely the same herd that was drinking at the dam. And if we look carefully at the elephant, you can see certain parts of her are a bit darker, indicating that she's probably been in water recently. So I'm quite confident this might be the same group of ellies that was seen on the Arathusa dam cam earlier this afternoon. But just off to our right here, James is actually on the tail of the female there, but I'm quite sure that this is possibly her youngster that is sitting also in the thickets here. Here we go, little guy. Still, so has mastered his trunk, probably not completely yet. So as you can see, as we see the younger guys who have no use of their trunk yet, sort of flaps around like a very wriggly snake. But there's some that I'm hoping are a little bit more out in the open up ahead. So we're going to just have a look up there, and if they're not there, we'll come right back here. They are in a very thick drainage line. And those of you who are regular viewers have heard me talk about how careful we have to be around elephants and how elephants let us know if they are upset, so you can read their behavior. And I personally don't like to go crashing into thickets after elephants. It could upset them. And generally we get such great views of elephants here, there's no need to put added stress on the animals. But so far we've been with this herd for a little bit, and they are really relaxed. They haven't shown any signs of aggression towards us. So I did see a couple of them, there we go, out on the road up ahead of us. Quite nice. I've been feeling like I haven't seen elephants for a while. And James, when I was on camera for James this morning, as he is for me this afternoon, we were remarking how nice it would be to actually spend some time with elephants. So very happy to have stumbled onto this breeding herd thanks to John, who was watching the Arathusa dam cam. So as you can see, a lot of that behavior I've been talking about, the adults are completely ignoring us, and even the youngsters that are right next to us showing almost zero. Let me just try to sneak forward a little bit more. They're showing absolutely zero annoyance or even slight irritation with us being here. You can see they're just carrying on with their daily lives. So I know a lot of you guys have seen me use that elephant size scale before. So why don't you guys try to tell me how old this little elephant we're looking at here. Remember to look at that little tusk there as well, and hopefully it'll move closer to an adult. There you can use the sort of comparison to an adult female to help you. It is maybe moving towards an adult. It's quite a distance, but maybe just try anyway. See if you can figure out how old this little guy is, and you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So also, quite often when I'm driving around elephants, I like to put the vehicle in low range. That means I don't have to rev the car excessively to move. That could also be taken as a sort of a sign of aggression by the elephants, sort of revving the car. So that's why it's nice to be in low range four-wheel drive, and the car can just idle very quietly as we are in amongst the herd. Hello, little man. There's a young bull in front of us who looks like he's already lost one of his tusks. It is possible that they can be born with one tusk, but highly unlikely. Maybe when he turns his head a little bit, we'll see if we can see if it's been broken. Now, it could become a bit of a disadvantage when he's older, but not too much of a disadvantage when it comes to feeding. But it could be a little disadvantage if when competing for females when he gets a bit older. Amazing how dexterous those trunks are. And he's picking up tiny little plants that he's sifting through in between a lot of that broken vegetation there. You can even see the leaf sort of greenery and build up on the inside of his trunk where he's been using the trunk to pull. Right down at the bottom there. You can see it there. That's obviously coloration that's come off the vegetation he's been pulling. So if we listen carefully, there are actually quite a lot of elephants around us, and we can't see most of them, we can just hear them just crashing around in the bush to the sort of the southeast of us. I'm going to try to sneak forward a little bit so we can see the youngster and the adult female together. We'll do that now. We'll just wait for the young male to move off. Let's try a little. I'm trying to see what exactly he's grabbing there. It looks like he's actually feeding off a vine that he's pulling out from amongst those branches. It looks like it could be a Arathusa vine, but I can't see well enough. If it is, those particular vines are very, very water rich, so there's a lot of water in them, and certain species you can actually break open and the water will drip out. And here comes this adult female next to us, and she's eating the most important grass species, I think. No, she's not. I take that back. I thought she was eating the meter that James made quite a show of this morning, but she wasn't. And if you look at their feet, as I was saying, you can see that darker sort of line, and that's from when they were at the water. There we go, guys. We can see the two together now. And if you remember the size scale, see if you can figure out how old that young elephant is. So there, what James is showing you there is her teat. She's probably not suckling at the moment, maybe just a little bit. This youngster, oh, he's trying to suckle, but I don't think he's going to be suckling for too much longer. To the Jays, Judy and Joyce, I would guess around 2 years. Well done, guys. And we'll have a look at the size scale now when we're finished looking at that youngster still trying to suckle. So at about 2 years, in the next little while, she will definitely be being weaned at this point. They start sort of the more serious weaning process from around 2 years old. And an elephant's maternal care is very, very intensive for the first 2 years of a young elephant's life. After that, they tend to be a little less particular and let them sort of roam around with the herd a bit more and not spend as much time very close to their mothers. I'm just going to use the radio for a second. So R2D2, as Andrew calls it, is back in play. Scott, do you copy?
Brent, just wondering, did you guys have Ngonzo heading south on Gara Catline from Catline?
Negative. The Ngonzo we had went north at that position this morning, across into Buffalo's Hook.
Because the track's heading south from veer north Gara Catline about midway between Central and Bottles and Catline, and we're coming sideways west.
Okay, copy. I know those tracks crossed at that road where Gara Catline joins with Buffalo's Hook, but they're heading north. Copy, good luck. So, while those elephants have popped behind the bush there, before we move, we'll just have a quick look at the book. So obviously it's not exact, and it's quite difficult to be exact with the ages of a lot of animals, but it's just a nice little guideline of the ellie ages. There were some mentions that they were sort of 6 months. Now, even at a year old, a baby elephant can still fit under the mother's belly. So definitely much older than a year, but still not quite as big as a sort of a 6-year-old, which is sort of halfway between the two. So quite a nice little diagram just to show you. Obviously the elephant bull is much bigger than this, and this is just with females and youngsters as they get bigger. I hope that helps you guys. I'm going to move forward so we can see the eddies again nicely now. John from California, welcome on the Sunset Safari. John would like to know, is it not true that elephants are more aggressive when they are tuskless? I have heard that rumor myself, John. I personally do not agree with it. I just think that possibly in certain areas people have had bad experiences with tuskless elephants. I've seen many tuskless elephants in quite a few different African countries, and I haven't felt they were particularly more aggressive. James, what about you?
No, not at all.
I think when I found aggressive elephants or elephants that are quite nervous in Tanzania, in an area that was quite heavily poached, all the elephants were nervous or aggressive. It wasn't just the tuskless individuals. And also, a lot of the tuskless individuals are cows and within herds, and the whole sort of demeanor of the herd makes a far bigger difference on the animal's behavior than an individual. There we go. James has found a fork-tailed drongo who is hawking. So as the elephants disturb insects as they're feeding, he will try to pick up on any stragglers. There he goes. Chop. So as the elephants disturb any grasshoppers or other insects, what's he? Did he get one? No, he missed. He's there taking advantage of the elephants disturbing the insects. So these elephants are moving into quite a thick area now, and as I said, I'm not a big fan of bashing and crashing in thick bush after elephants. There's no reason to disturb them. We've had a really nice sighting. They've been really relaxed in our presence. So we're going to cross now to Scotty and see what he's been up to and what he's looking for. So, and we'll definitely be back with you a little later in the drive. We're going to go sneak around at the drainage lines, see if we can find any leopard tracks. So we'll catch up with you a little bit later, and enjoy your time with Scott.
Good afternoon. With myself and Andrew, as you can see, we've stumbled upon some vervet monkeys, and even though they're around, we don't often get to show you them, so this is a great opportunity. There's more than one sitting in the tree. There's probably about 7 or 8 that I've seen. There's another one there, a youngster. And they are such wonderful animals to watch. It's just sometimes filming them can be a bit tricky because they can often be hidden in the foliage of the trees that they scamper into when they see us. I'm just going to roll forward ever so slightly. Oh, that didn't work. Well, again, a very, very warm welcome to all of you, and so good to have you with us on safari this afternoon. What a great start it's been with Brent and the elephants, and it's been a while since we've seen elephant. I can't remember when I personally saw any, so great to know that there's at least one herd that's back on the property, and it sounds like it was quite a substantial herd with a few members in it, and what a way to start the afternoon. Andrew and myself started off at Buffalo's Hook Dam and then made our way back to the central parts of Djuma, and we stumbled upon some lion tracks which were heading in the opposite direction to tracks that James and Brent had found this morning. So it is possible that they would have moved during the day. There's no guarantees out here, but the Nkuhuma pride, which in all likelihood will be, have been known to move during the day. It was just at this dam a few days ago, weeks ago, that they surprised us, and they arrived here in the middle of the afternoon. And the good thing about this dam is there's a waterhole camera here that runs 24 hours a day, and we actually got an update from the zoomies who control where the waterhole camera looks, and it's such a useful tool for us to help us find animals. Now, the Djuma Cam, hello. It's apparently on us, and you can see it there in the tree. I'm just going to reverse ever so slightly. It's just that little white box there. So that's where all the magic comes from. And there's been incredible footage captured from that funny little camera. And really good audio is picked up as well. We can't see the speaker from where we are here now, but it's lower down on the tree. And as Andrew zooms out, you'll get an idea of where the camera looks. Now, if you follow the dam wall, that's basically straight north. So if animals do walk from right to left over the dam wall, that would be in a northerly direction. If they move from left to right towards the camera, that would be in a southerly direction. And the opposites are obviously east and west. Left of the waterhole cam towards where that buffalo is over there would be a westerly direction. And that's just useful for some of you, the viewers, who help us with the updates of animals that have been seen. And sometimes the animals can move off before we get you, so really useful for you to know at least which direction's which now, and that way it'll aid in us helping to find animals once they've already moved off. As you can see though, these buffalo aren't going anywhere, and we will get a closer look of them as we cross over the dam wall. And we're going to head back to these lion tracks and try and decipher where they've headed. They were coming back into our property, and midway down a long road their tracks have disappeared. Now on the one side of the road is a very big block with fairly thick vegetation. On the other side of the road there's a riverbed with extremely thick vegetation. They could be either way. I saw buffalo tracks, and it appeared to be tracks of a buffalo running to the east, and it could very well be that those lion have chased the buffalo, and who knows, maybe they've caught one. So that's what I'm hoping for, and hopefully when we get back to where we did have the last tracks, we'll be able to show you some of them. They look quite crisp and clear, and that's why I mentioned to Brent that they could be from during the day, which would make sense because the tracks that James and Brent had this morning were heading in the opposite direction. It's a beautiful warm day today, and it's about 25 degrees Celsius, which is around 70 odd degrees Fahrenheit, and that makes for a typical winter's afternoon. The only thing that's different about this afternoon is the fact that there are a few clouds in the sky, which has been great. It's been a pleasant change of scenery from the crystal blue skies that we've been having day in and day out. And as you can see, this buffalo has got two oxpeckers busy feeding off it, and they're looking for little ticks, which are parasites. So, well, there's three oxpeckers, sorry, and they provide a huge help to buffalo and other large herbivores in ridding them of these parasites. Really pretty birds, the oxpeckers. They've got bright red beaks and that yellow eye. As you can see though, this old boy is very relaxed. Eyes are closed. He's not even chewing the cud. And he's got his rear end plonked in the water to keep himself cool. Good afternoon, Pamela, and welcome on board with us. Pamela sent through her question on Twitter, so if any of you would also like to send through questions, it's really easy. Just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send emails through to questions@wildearth.tv. Sorry, the sun is really bright in my eyes. And Pamela would like to know if we see any chimps or gorillas in the Sabi Sands, and that's a great question. We do get them in other parts of Africa. but not in the Sabi Sands. The only primates we get here are the baboons, of which we saw one lone baboon this morning, which we don't get to see very often. There's a whole lot of birds making absolute racket over there, and I'm not sure what they could be alarmed about. It could be a bird of prey. Anyway, Pamela, we get baboons, the vervet monkeys, which we've just seen, as well as bush babies, which are small nocturnal primates. Thanks, Andrew. Andrew's busy holding up his jacket for me. And you find chimps and gorillas in Central and Northern Africa. We don't get them this far south. They typically prefer denser jungle and forest environments, which we don't have here. So it's not the suitable habitat for them. And therefore, we don't get them here, sadly. Central and Northern Africa. Well, we're going to take you from one of the waterholes on Djuma across to one of the waterholes on Arathusa, where Brent has currently found a unique sighting. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
What do you think that thing is?
I think it's injured.
Yeah. Welcome back, guys. We've just popped down towards the Arathusa Dam, and as the winter comes on, you quite often find hippos out of the water and enjoying a bit of the sunshine, as it is getting quite cold. There's a young hippo there, but he looks very sore, possibly injured. You just see, it does not look like he's walking very comfortably. He's definitely injured. When he got up, you could see he was very, very in a lot of pain. What is that other one doing there? Look at it with its nose. Having good fun. And the oxpeckers are gleaning for parasites. I think if we moved now, we would actually probably give them a fright and they might run into the water. We're just going to stand by here, let them get used to our presence before we move any further or any closer to them. Hippos quite often do not feel really relaxed out of the water. Look, James, look at the one rolling over. Did you see that?
I'm afraid I missed it.
Oh, sorry. I should have given you a bit more warning. I'll keep an eye. There was actually a hippo doing barrel rolls. I just saw 4 sets of legs in the air. Oh, it looks like that youngster might be coming to. No. But as I was saying, they do sometimes feel quite unrelaxed when they're out of the water. They do feel a little bit vulnerable from other predators, and they will sometimes just move slowly back into the water as they're doing now. I don't think it's from us. I think it's the fact that the sun has gone behind a cloud, so that warmth that they were getting has disappeared. So the water might be a warmer option for them at the moment. Oh, out of the way. So at this time of the year, the hippos are going to start moving further and further from the water in search of decent forage and decent grazing. And I know, probably not in this area, but in other areas, hippos can move up to 25 kilometers in each direction a night between water and grazing. And specific later in the year, sort of towards October, in other parts of Africa, you get a big increase in the amount of lions killing hippos, specifically in Botswana and Zambia, in and around the Linyanti region and the Luangwa Valley. Some very strange ongoings. I'm just trying to keep a lookout who's going to do the next strange thing. But isn't it wonderful? You can come on an African safari, and while you're sitting having your lunch, and have a whole raft of hippos in front of your dinner table. So guys, I'm just going to pop across to where Ryan is, who's one of the guides here at Arathusa. Just going to have a quick afternoon meeting to see what's been out there and around, and also just let him know about those elephants we just had. And then I think we're going to go possibly look to see if we can find Tingana again. How's everybody? Very well in yourself? You having a good afternoon? Isn't Grove all over Zebra Drive? Any update on Tingana?
No, that's where I'm off to.
Myself as well. I just keep getting distracted as we go by lots of different things.
It's got to give me my handle.
Negative.
Okay. But I need to get that back. Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
No worries.
Otherwise,
He's done,
I'll try and
He's out, Joe.
there's another one. I'll try and give you one so that you can communicate with the guys on this side.
Cool.
It's like life easier.
And for when you guys come that side, one of us
we
can
don't
keep.
have the channel anymore.
No, but if we have your handheld, one of us can keep the handheld on that side.
But where's the nice no more cooking?
Oh, okay.
Sensitive.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to meander down towards that area as well. How many stations are following up there?
Just myself and Darby, so you can
Cool. Thanks very much.
I'm going to go straight to where it was this morning.
Cool.
I'm going to go up towards second one.
Okay, cool. I'll go down towards 15th. Is that it? 16th crossing, and then come up from that side. Enjoy, guys. You're in very good hands there with Ryan. Have a good drive. Sorry about that, guys. It's just our afternoon meeting. As you can see, we have quite a spectacular office to have our afternoon meetings in. So Ryan is also heading towards where Scott last saw Tingana this morning. We're going to go on different routes to make sure he hasn't snuck out of the area. It is a little bit close to our boundary on this property, so fingers crossed that he hasn't moved further to the south. Jackie from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I think. Yeah. Jackie would like to know, do animals that die of natural causes know they are dying and move off to sort of expire alone? Jackie, not normally. What will happen is quite often if they are in sort of dire straits and injured or lacking health quite a lot, what they'll do is they'll try actually stay with the herd and whatnot, because that is protection for them, and they will try not to be alone, because when they are alone they're a much easier target for the predators. So no, they don't really move off to die alone. I'm trying to think of any animal that might, but I can't really think of one that would do that. Most animals would seek other animals of the same species if they are a social animal, so as not to be alone, as to try to prolong their life for as much as possible. So animals they really don't want to die. Their first instinct is to survive, so they will try to survive for as long as possible, no matter the circumstance. And it's unbelievable how resilient some of those animals can be. And I mean, major injuries, which we would consider major injuries, they seem to bounce back from. Those of you who've been watching for quite a while, you might remember we saw that zebra mare who had that huge rip in her hide, possibly about this long, I mean wide like this, from escaping a lion attack. And I said to you guys, it doesn't look infected. It's probably a couple of days old. There's no flies and whatnot. I'm pretty sure, even though there's a bit of stiffness and swelling, and we saw that zebra, I think another week or two later, and the wounds still look quite good. And I'm pretty sure, well, we haven't seen that zebra again. You can never be 100% sure unless we see her again. But I'm quite sure that unless the lion's got her again, she's probably would have recovered quite well and will survive from an injury like that, which we would consider to be massive and needing surgery. So guys, I know we've left those elephants, but I just thought of a really nice little question to test you guys, see if you have the general knowledge. Back on elephants. Elephants obviously been domesticated for a very long time, both Asian and African elephants. And I would like to know, when is the first thought time for African elephants to be domesticated, and by who? He's quite a famous person in history. So who was the first person to domesticate African elephants? You can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. Excuse me guys, another little afternoon meeting quickly. How's it? Very good. And yourself, though? Nice to see you. Missing you on the touch field?
Yeah.
How you guys been? Busy? Are we going to go have a look for old Tingana? There was a drove on Zebra Drive, quite a big group. Have a good afternoon, guys. Sorry about that, folks. Back with you now. Just saying hello to Darby, who's from one of the lodges further to the south of us. But so back to that question, which is the sort of the first famous person in history to domesticate African elephants? What did he use them for as well? And where was he from? There we go, James, that's a good one. And where was he from? And remember, you can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. Sure, it seems like the vacuum of elephants on Djuma, it seems like they're all on Arathusa. There are tracks everywhere. So we are getting close to that area where Tingana was seen this morning. So we're going to start going a little bit slower and really looking for the tracks, just in case he has moved. So also, while we're in the area where where this leopard was last seen. We listen very carefully, and as quite handy having James on the back as well, as an extra set of eyes and ears. So we've got an answer. I think someone's saying Kubla Khan. As far as I know, that is incorrect. And maybe possibly Asian elephants, but I think they were actually domesticated even earlier. But the first person to domesticate African elephants, and he used them for a very specific purpose. Probably not the one doing the domestication, but the man who came up with the general idea. No one seems to have got it right yet. So I'm having a bit of problems with the radios, but I hear we have had a correct answer. Donna, and I think there was someone else, and the correct answer was Hannibal. And Hannibal used them as war elephants. Hannibal, Donna and Ginny, you're not Hannibal, sorry about that. So he trained them for the use in war. And no one has said where Hannibal is from yet. Around here you can see there's quite a lot of what we call copsing, and that means there was a really hot fire through here. As far as I know, it was last year sometime, and I know a lot of people think fire is really, really destructive, but as you can see, all the trees that are burnt, what's happened is they're just growing again from the base. And in a lot of areas of Africa, fire is very, very important. Most of Africa is what you call a fire climax biome. And what that means is a lot of the grass species, and certainly some of the tree species, actually need fire to be at their most productive. So fire is not always a bad thing. I hear there were quite a few other people who did get Hannibal. Well done. So really well done, guys. But no one still managed to tell me where Hannibal's from. For those of you who might have tuned in a little bit late, not sure what we're up to, we are busy searching for Tingana, an adult male leopard who is the dominant male leopard in this area. Oh, some dwarf mongoose here as well. We're just going to wait. There's a vehicle just passing us. So Tingana is the dominant male, predominantly around Arathusa. He does come into the south and western sections of Djuma as well. there's been quite a lot of speculation. I've heard from the other guides in the area that there's a new male coming in from the south called the Anderson, or the southwest called the Anderson male, and he has been pushing Tingana and pushing Tingana further into Mvula's territory. So quite an interesting time coming up with male leopards at the moment. Also, apparently this morning there was a lot of sort of questions about whether Tingana was Shadow's cub, Sindile's father. Now, I know a lot of the times us as people, we like to put things in nice little easy boxes when it comes to animals like that. So, because Shadow's territory falls mostly within Tingana's territory, he must be the father. He was seen mating with her, and it is near impossible to say that for sure. Female leopards do often move well out of territory to mate, and they do this to mate with all the males in the area to try to convince all of them that leopard cub, it belongs to them. And just check where the vehicle tracks were off the road where he was left this morning. But unfortunately, without taking a biopsy dart of both the cub and the males in the area, it is near impossible to say for sure that Tingana is Sindile's father. There is a probability, a high probability, but I don't like to try a guess when I can't be 100% certain on those type of things. So this is where he was left this morning, so we're gonna sneak in here, see if he's around. There is a strong possibility he's moved. Remember that big wall of clouds that came over this morning? It's been a nice cool day, so there's a strong possibility he could have moved during the day. So I'm guessing, I know he was lying up near a termite mound, and those of you who've been watching for a while will know that he is quite the rare species killer. He has, I think in the last couple of years, or the last year or so, killed 4 aardvark, and I've even seen him waiting next to a burrow in a termite mound. He waited there for nearly a full 48 hours, but obviously he didn't get lucky that time. We're just going to check around here carefully. See if he's still here. As I said, it's been a really nice cool day, so there's a strong possibility he might have moved on. But we are checking carefully. Hi Ginny, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. Ginny would like to know, would male leopards have anything to do with the raising of cubs? Ginny, not a very active role. Their role in sort of parenting is defending the territory from new males, and so obviously having mated with the female, they will often think that the cub is theirs, even if it might not be. So their role in parenting would be to defend the territory from new males, because if a new male did happen to come into the territory, they would definitely kill any cubs or sub-adults that are presently that could have been sired by that dominant male. So no real sort of parenting, but definitely will defend the area from interloping males. So moment we're going round and round the termite mound. I think there's quite a strong chance that he has moved on. I just want to check the last termite mound up ahead there very quickly. But it definitely looks like he has moved on. Oh dear. Well, we're going to have to start tracking then. But I know it's very easy, going back to what we were talking about earlier, for us to say, oh, Mvula is definitely the father of this, and Tingana is the father of that. But we've got to be careful, and I know a lot of people think they can see the resemblance in the faces and stuff like that. But as I said, unless you can never be 100% sure unless you do the genetic work on those animals. And I mean, there's been some really interesting recent studies with lions in Namibia and Arathusa that has proved that with the majority of the lions there, 53% of the cubs are not born to the dominant coalition males. They're born to other lions that sort of sneak in on the edges and mate with those females. And that's obviously quite an important thing, especially if there's a large coalition of males that might stay on longer than a single male. So there is a possibility of inbreeding, that these sort of nomadic males sort of inseminate the females on the slide, so to speak. Whoops, see? So I'm going to take a gander. Obviously it's very difficult to see tracks in grass like this. That he might have possibly moved towards the drainage line. So I think we'll go check around there. He also could just be lying flat right here and we might not even see him. So while we try decipher where Tingana has gone, we're going to hand over to Scotty, see what him and Andrew have been up to, but we'll definitely catch up with you a little later in the drive.
Welcome back, everyone, and interesting, Tingana's moved off, and I hope he hasn't moved too far, but still gives Brent enough of a challenge while he tries to track it down. Tingana is known to spend long periods of time waiting in ambush for prey. He's been known to wait 24 hours at an aardvark burrow waiting for it to come out, like I said this morning, and Brent could have even mentioned that this afternoon. Now, in all the excitement, I forgot to remind all of you, Chris has arrived. I did mention a couple of days ago on various drives that Chris would be joining us for an interview drive. He's a highly experienced guide, spent 16, 17 years in the industry, and he arrived today and will be spent a bit of time in the final control room. Now he's on board with us, and tomorrow he'll be out and drive. So you must welcome him and send him through lots of questions, and he's certainly going to take you on a good safari, just to give you forewarning. And we actually work together. Brent also worked with him in the past, so we all know one another, which is great, and good to have him with us. Now, I have spent some time on foot, just up ahead of us, where these lion tracks disappeared off this road. They were coming down the road towards us, in the opposite direction to where Brent's had essentially their tracks heading north. And whether they came down this road, turned around and then walked back on the sides of the road or on a slightly different path before crossing north, I'm not sure. Or possibly they crossed north and then crossed south and joined onto the road at a different point. Anyway, it's going to be worth spending a little bit of time in the area and see if we don't hear any signs or signals from the bush to try and help us. That was a beautiful big ebony tree that Andrew just showed you guys, and I remember a great sighting of Karula up in that tree, and that was the only time I've managed to be involved in sharing a kill with you. And she caught a baby impala and hoisted it up that big tree. In another tree nearby, she had that impala's mother, which she killed the night before. The night before that, she lost her last cub to hyenas. So interesting circle and balance how she can lose her cub, and just hours later she managed to kill an impala but left the impala lamb stranded. Not for long though, because she caught it the following afternoon. Oh, this is a very pretty bird that Andrew's just zoomed in on, and I'm going to leave this one up to you to identify. So send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv. Now this isn't for the seasoned ornithologists, and we'll only accept the first 3 answers, so you've got to be quick. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or questions@wildearth.tv, and the first 3 names that come through with the correct answer will be the proud winners of this little bird quiz. Not really easy to see, but that's part of the challenge. Here it's going to pop out onto the road, and it should make your job of identifying a little bit easier. It's busy wandering around looking for old grass seeds that would have fallen off their stems. And they're almost entirely seed eaters, these little doves. Oh, well, I gave away half the name, but it's a specific kind of dove, and I always do that. I'm terrible at these quizzes because I often give the answer away before you've had a chance to, but it's a certain type of dove. Okay, well, we're going to leave it to continue its snacks. Well, good afternoon, Diane in Michigan, and welcome on board with us. Diane would like to know, has this vegetation either side of the road been mowed? And yes, that's a great observation. It has been mowed, and the reason for that is it creates a fire break. So main roads kind of quarter the Djuma property with fire breaks, so that if fires are coming from either left to right, when they reach this area, there's not a large fuel load. And we do get bushfires here. Sometimes it's controlled burns that become out of control, and other times it can be a lightning strike that causes a fire. And there are various clearings within the Sabi Sands that are actually mowed, not for a fire break, simply to create a slightly different habitat, and that is at the discretion of the landowners. It's all privately owned land as to how much mowing will be done, but it does create a better environment for animals like zebra and wildebeest. And we've already got some answers coming through, so well done to all of you. Well done to Diane and Gerda. Gerda was technically slightly more correct because Diane said an emerald wood dove. It's an emerald spotted wood dove. And well done. And Gillian Milwaukee is the 3rd one in. So well done to all of you for your speedy response and your correct answers. And I'm just going to see if we can show you the little emerald spots on its wings, which gives it its name. They need to be in sunlight. It's about to no, it's about to fly off. But you may have noticed 2 small windows on the side of its wings that glisten an emerald green in the sunlight. And to all of you who also sent through the correct answers, which are streaming through now, very well done to you as well. But we can't acknowledge everyone because we'd be here all day. But you know who you are, and well done. For any of you who may have got it wrong, that's certainly not a problem. And we're all out here together to share and learn and teach one another whatever we can, and it's quite often you, the viewers, that are correcting me and teaching me, and I can't thank you enough for that. It's infinite amounts of information that would be required to know everything about all the plants and birds and animals that occur out here, and I certainly don't have enough space in my memory bank for all of that at the moment, but we keep working on it. Now, there's a tree on the right-hand side of the road just ahead of us here, and it was just on the other side of that tree that these lion tracks disappeared. They'd been coming directly towards us, and I had one track off to the right, which leads down to a riverbed, heading down to the riverbed, but then I couldn't find any tracks of it crossing the riverbed, so difficult. There's also more than one lion here, so who knows, maybe they've gone here. Maybe they've gone there, or maybe they have gone as the tracks that James and Brent found this morning suggested. Just share an update on the radio as we were looking at that little emerald potted wood dove. This person had found. Afternoon stations, any updates please? Thanks very much for that. I don't know which pride it is. Okay, copy, thanks.
So, welcome back guys. We're checking around still for that male leopard. As I said, I thought he might come down to the drainage line, but while we're here, unfortunately in the shadow, but up on the combretum or the bush willow there, we just spotted a little bit lower there, James. There we go. There he is. So it's a bit in shadow, which makes him a little bit harder to see, but a really nice insectivorous kingfisher called a brown hooded kingfisher. So not quite as electric blue and striking as the woodlands, which we saw so often during the summer months, but he is a resident. He doesn't migrate when it gets dry, and quite a few of our kingfisher species we get in this area are insectivorous rather than feeding on fish, as you would expect, named a kingfisher. And let me just double check something for you here quickly. That I know for sure with the woodlands, but I'm not, oh bless you James, I'm not 100% sure with the brown hooded. And I will tell you in 1 second. He is. I know I've told the story about the woodlands before, but the beginning of their Latin name is halcyon. And halcyon is a term that is derived from the Mediterranean, a halcyon day when the sea is so still it looks like a lake. And apparently that name came from Greek times, that when the sea was that still, kingfishers would get confused and think they could fly across it between land, and they wouldn't, and they would often turn up on ships and boats, or boats out to sea, completely fatigued and whatnot, all just fall into the ocean and die. And that is more from what's called I think it's called the common kingfisher, which is quite common in Europe, believe it or not, being named the common kingfisher. We don't get common kingfisher here in Africa, but it is a relative of the other halicine kingfishers, and we do get quite a few different halicine kingfishers here. But quite an interesting story about how they got their Latin name. Just heard, did you hear that? Like a branch breaking. Interesting. Keep listening. I'm going to try edge a little bit closer, see if we can get a better view of this guy. He might fly though, but before we do that, I'm just going to say, you see, nice to sit in quite nice open areas. Gives him a nice view if there are any insects moving. And obviously for an insectivorous, off he goes. There we go. He's gone onto the ground. Oh, it looks like he caught something. Maybe we can catch up with him around the corner. I was about to say, it worked out perfect there. He's a nice broad vista that he's able to see any insects that are moving. And obviously now as we get drier and less insects there are, oh, he's flown off, unfortunately. It's going to be harder and harder for him to catch a meal. But luckily for him, we don't get too cold and we don't have any snow, so there always are insects around, even when it is very cold for us. So, for those of you who were on a sunset safari with me a while ago, where we actually spent some time with Tingana, I'm going to get James to show you now. But this beautiful tree to the right, over here, is the tree that he had hoisted that impala carcass into, the one that Mark found that died of natural causes. And that is the tree he hoisted the impala carcass into. And those of you who've watched Instagram and Twitter and whatnot, that black and white picture I put of a leopard ascending was that very tree. Now I'm going to ask you, what tree is it? It is an easy one, not quite as difficult as James's impossible tree quiz. So I'm nicer than James, so I'll start with an easy question. So who can tell me what tree this is? Quite often along drainage lines, also on termite mounds. It's an evergreen. It has two different English common names that I'll accept both. And if anyone can give me the Latin name, you'll get bonus points. But a very, very beautiful tree. Probably one of the more impressive trees we do get in this area. And let's see who can find out what tree this is. And remember to send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Oh, can I see them? I can hear them, but can we see them? Very interesting bird call. For me, it always sounds like a 1980s computer. One you see in those old Bond flicks when the villain's opening up the side of the mountain. Funny noises. That's an African green pigeon. Just trying to see if we can spot them. Can hear them, but they sound a bit far. do love meandering through these drainage lines, especially at this time of the day. Such wonderful trees, late afternoon light, and always a sort of feeling of expectation when it comes to looking for leopards around these areas. It's not very far as the crow flies from where they last saw that Tingana male leopard. So just checking. See this? Yeah. Very carefully around these areas. Lots of nice shade for him. Also some of the favorite prey species like the Nyala move around. Saw something there. Quite not as distinct as I would have liked. Also pop it on the dashboard makes it a lot easier to have a look. So, quite a big bone. I'm not 100% sure what it's from, but possibly a buffalo, just judging by the size. But what I'm trying to show you is in certain parts here, these look like they could be from hyena. It's quite old, but I was trying to see, quite often when you find a bone like this out in the bush, you find that rodents, specifically porcupine, will have a really good chew on them. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to have, but it's always worth having a look. And in some areas of Africa, you must be very careful picking up bones due to anthrax. But anthrax isn't that common in this area, and also it's still a bit too close to the wet season. Anthrax only really comes out when it's very dry. And for those of you who are not sure what anthrax is, it is a fungi. And the spores get into the lungs, or your lungs, or the animal's lungs, and that's the end. Well, unfortunately, not too much happening, but still nice to look at it. And you can see this is a very old bone. If I rub it, or if I take my knife out, you can see how easily, I'm not even using a blade or anything, just a little bit of a file. You see how easy it comes off, and that's from probably how old, I think? Definitely over a year of sitting in the sun, and eventually this whole bone will disintegrate, and slowly, and little things like porcupines and even the smaller rodents will chew on it if they feel like they're lacking calcium, and when it gets to chewable pieces, and we've seen it a couple of times in the last 2 weeks. We saw that we've seen giraffe eating bones a few times, and then we saw an Nyala eating a bone a couple of days ago. But unfortunately, no nice little gnaw marks from a smaller rodent. Also gives us a chance to sit and listen and see if the bush is going to tell us anything. See if the bush reporters are out in force. A squirrel shouting, leopard, 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 or a baboon going, lion, lion. So we are listening for all the different sounds in the bush that might give us a clue where there might be a potential predator. Cecilia, Jean, and Chada, who got that tree right. It is a jackalberry. And then the others who got the other common name, I think there were two of you, the first two that... Well done to Rocky, who got the bonus question. He got the Latin name correct, or she got the Latin name correct. Sorry, Rocky, not sure. I'm presuming it's a bonus question. He got the Latin name correct, or she got the Latin name correct. Sorry, Rocky, not sure. I'm presuming it's a but it is Diospirus mespiliformis. Doesn't that just roll off the tongue so nicely? Diospirus mespiliformis. I remember as a youngster learning trees with my dad, that was one of the first sort of big names that I was taught. Diospirus mespiliformis, and I used to walk around. Oh, isn't that pretty? Just a male impala, but just a really nice shot through the... Oh, maybe a little bit forward. Oh, he's going to move, of course. But he was just standing so nicely in the sun, with that beautiful change of color around him as all the combretums are losing their leaves. But as I was saying, I used to walk around the safari lodge where I grew up, going Diospirus mespiliformis, Diospirus mespiliformis, till it's sort of ingrained, and I think that's possibly the one I will never ever forget. Even if I am unlucky enough to contract a disease that affects my mind, I'll probably wander around drooling saying Diospirus mespiliformis. Well, there he is, hiding there. We're going to continue on. For those of you who watched the fireside chat last night, I mentioned I've gone back about 5 or 6 times to where we saw that serval about a week and a half ago. We're going to definitely make our way into that area. There's always a chance. But back to... we're going to go back to that jackalberry for a second. I mean, that common name jackalberry is, for me, a little bit misleading. African ebony is a bit better. It's said to be named because jackalers seem to eat the fruit. And in all my years in the bush, I have never ever seen a jackal eating the fruit of a jackalberry. James, have you?
I have one.
Okay, there you go. James has once. But, these are going to be... they're gone. Forward.
In the jungle.
Really? Tell me when to stop. Birds proving to be very sneaky. And there. Unfortunately, we just heard them calling there. Really, really pretty bird. We see their cousin quite often, which is the white-crowned helmet shrike. We have seen the red-billed, which is the old name, now called the Rhett's helmet shrike, quite a few times, but they seem to be far more difficult to get on the camera than their cousins, the white helmet shrikes. Definitely not as common as the white helmet shrikes. Hi, Khada. Welcome on the Sunset Safari. Khada would like to know how long do anthrax spores last? Khada, I'm not 100% sure, but to my knowledge, pretty much for a very long time. I think they can be dormant for over 50, 60 years, maybe even close to 100 years. Why don't one of you guys check on that for me? Please, if you could check on the internet, how long do anthrax spores, how long can they lie dormant for? And you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. magical late afternoon light coming in now. Everything seems sort of very clean and crisp in this light. And fortunately, James and I were discussing this morning, we were a bit worried about that wall of cloud coming in, making it even colder, because we're not as tough as Scott, and we like to be warm and protected from the weather. So we're quite happy it's sort of dissipated and we're left in this sort of magnificent late afternoon light. Hi, Christina from Pittsburgh. Christina was wondering that if there was going to be a chance, since James demonstrated geophagia, whether I was going to demonstrate osteophagia and chew the bone. Unfortunately, my taste buds are a little bit more refined than James's, so I don't delve into such things. I've learned my lesson. There's quite a funny photograph my mother is very proud of me as a small child, about 18 months old, somewhere in the bush. I think it was in Botswana. My parents were of that sort of, when we grew up, if it doesn't kill them, it makes them stronger parenting style. So I was sitting while they were having, I think, a sundowner somewhere, and I happened to come across a fresh buffalo pat, a nice, really fresh buffalo dung, like one of these that are in the road over here. Probably a bit more fresh than that, and we've got no leopard tracks. Oh, they're hyena, unfortunately. So something quite like that, but more fresh than that one. That one's a bit old, and you can see it there. Oh, I'm a bit too close, but there we go. And so my parents obviously weren't paying very much attention to me as a small child crawling around in the bush around their feet, and I managed to break open. I'm going to see, this one looks like it's a little bit too old, but let's just have a quick look. Stick.
What do you want a stick for, Brent?
Yes, I've been refined these days. There we go. It is quite nice, up and fresh. The one that I found as a small child was far more fresh than this. It was literally steaming. I can't remember the whole story, but I think a large herd of buffalo had passed nearby a pan, and I was sitting on the ground, crawling around playing, and I just put both hands right in, and as most small children do, home. And my mother, instead of going into shock mode and horror mode, like quite a few mothers I know would do, she started laughing and took numerous pictures of her son covered in buffalo poo, and left me like that, as far as I know, for quite a while, till they had to put me back in the vehicle. They only cleaned me off then, but I think that was the last time I tasted buffalo poo. So I've had well, that is the worst of the phages, and I've done that, so I think I'm going to give the bones a miss for today. very much, Charlie, and the rest of you who sent through how long anthrax can survive or lie dormant. It seems to be around 50 years. Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate all your help when I'm out here. And it's nice to know we can almost never be stumped because we can always ask you for help. Just hear some chin spot batis alarming. Just double checking. Probably nothing too serious. Just gonna have a quick look around the corner there, just to make sure. We have been checking this area semi-systematically to try figure out if that male leopard has come out of the block. So even sometimes the smallest bird and the smallest animal in the bush can give you the clue to one of the larger predators. They don't sound too stressed, so, and I can't see any sign. Can you see them? And they're not thorn.
Quarry.
James has spotted them. We'll try to find them for you now.
In there.
Little chin spot batis, but I can't see the sign of any predator, either avian or mammalian. So possibly there's a reptilian that we can't see that they might be upset about. But I must admit, it was a long shot to try follow up on twin spot batis alarm calls. I have had zero success in the past, but there's always a first time. I have had success following up on firefinch alarm calls to find a leopard, but never a chin spot batis. While we keep checking these areas, we're going to do another few loops around here to see if we find any tracks of this male leopard. Hopefully he has come out of the block. If not, there was a report of tracks of Shadow and her cub, a Sindile, further to the sort of south east. We might head down into that area to have a look as well. In the meantime, we're going to cross over to Scotty, see what he's been up to, and we'll be back with you a little later in the drive.
Welcome back, and I must say thanks very much to Brent for conducting so much of this afternoon safari. I've been spending a fair amount of time on foot trying to establish what these lion have done, and therefore it hasn't been possible for you to join in on the adventure. Sadly, the area that these lion have headed into is very thick. I'm almost certain that the tracks that Brent and James had this morning, they did initially head north, but then they turned back south, and that would have been what threw off Brent and James, or potentially they were further to the north of us, and then after Brent and James had checked those tracks, they could have come back south. Now we're trying to establish where they have gone. I did have one track heading east, but that doesn't mean anything because they could have been hunting in that area, and one track could be facing east, but they could have failed a hunt, turned around and continued west, for example. Anyway, the good news is I'm almost certain they are on Djuma somewhere, not further north of us where we cannot go. So We're just going to spend a little bit of time in this area, stop, listen, and hope that these lions pop out somewhere. It's cooling off now, and it's turning into a very, very nice evening. And when it does cool off like this, it does increase the likelihood of predators being active. So if these lions are sleeping nearby, it's probably around about now that they could start moving about. Just seeing one kudu crossing the road there. Andrew's zooming in on her. I'm hoping some more will follow her. As they're usually in small herds of 5 to 10 animals, there are more on the left, so this is going to be great. We're going to be able to stop the vehicle here and wait for the rest to emerge from the left and pass across to the right. Just trying to find a spot where we can best wait and see. This individual's just sneaking off, and aren't they beautiful antelope, the kudu? As I said, this was a female. You can tell this because she lacks horns, and the majority of antelope in this part of South Africa, the males will have horns and the females won't. But buffalo and wildebeest are exceptions to that rule amongst the herbivores. And now look closely, you'll notice how the vertical white stripes on her body help chop her body up into little puzzle pieces, making it difficult for predators to detect them when they are in thick vegetation. And being browsers, we might see her nibbling on leaves. They do spend a lot of time in this thick vegetation. And a lot of the vertical branches of trees, along with those vertical white stripes, make for wonderful camouflage. You would have also maybe noticed that the kudu have got massive ears. Again, this is another adaptation for the thick environments they typically find themselves, because good hearing in a thick area where you cannot see far will be very useful when they are trying to detect predators sneaking up on them. Whereas an animal that eats grass out in open plains has less of a need for great hearing. Now, where is the rest of her family? I can see one slowly making its way into a clearing on our left, so I think it may be our best option to just be a little bit patient and wait for, there's at least one, it's a youngster, so it's going to be really cute to see. And whether she has split up from, or it has split up from its mother or not, it's hard to say because it is so thick, but it does seem small. So I'd be surprised if it's not quite close to its mother, or at least another kudu. And they're going to pop out just on the left of this large tree that Andrew's zooming in onto. There we go. Andrew was ahead of me there in his forecast of the animal's movement, so well done to him. And now you'll notice these massive ears that they can pivot in all angles to not only be able to listen forwards but backwards if need be. Beautiful. And then an even smaller one is now following it from behind, and it's got very, very white legs. This is abnormally white, and this is a very strange thing that we're seeing here, unless I'm imagining things, but its left leg looks considerably whiter than they usually do. Even if you compare it to the other one that it was just walking alongside. And it was quite interesting, the genetic variance, because usually they all look very similar. We're just going to creep up ahead now and see if we can't get a few more views of them. And this is a great place for us to be spending time, because if these lions are in the general vicinity, if they do get up and move and any animals detect them and alarm call at them, we'll be in earshot. So I'm really thankful that these kudu have popped out where they have, because it suits our plan perfectly. Good afternoon, Cecilia, and thanks for sending your question through. There's not much of a gap, but Andrew's going to try his best to show you a few more views of these kudu. Well, Cecilia would like to know if any animals in the Sabi Sands pair for life, and that's a good question. The majority of animals will not pair for life that we see out here, but there are exceptions to the rule. Steenbok, a very small antelope, are monogamous, so they will pair for life. And a lot of the birds are monogamous, especially the birds of prey. But in terms of mammals, I can't seem to think of any others than the Steenbok. There's no doubtedly some that I'm forgetting. But typically males will have to vie for dominance over females on a continual basis. And that makes great sense, because it ensures that only the strongest, fittest, healthiest genes are passed on. And now we've got a good example of this little kudu browsing. Thanks very much for that question though, Cecilia, and if I have forgotten any, I have no doubt that some of our well-informed viewers will alert us to that, and I'll be sure to relay that information to you. Well, hello Kevin, all the way over in Wisconsin, and I hope you're enjoying your afternoon safari with us. Kevin would like to know if any of the antelope shed their horns like deer do in America, and the answer to that is no, Kevin, and it's one of the defining differences between antelope and deer. All antelope horns will grow throughout their life, and they've got a keratin sheath with a very hard white bony inner, no different to a leg bone or any bone in our body. Antlers, on the other hand, grow every season. They increase in size every season, but they are shed, and it's a very fast-growing keratin, I believe, that make up antlers, and they don't have any bone compound that I'm not certain about this, but I don't think there's a bony compound, and they are, like Kevin said, shed seasonally. So interesting how two similar animals have such different ways. And I'm not sure of the reason behind that. If you think about it, I mean, even the antelope here will only need their horns at certain times of the year when they are vying for mating rights. Most of the herbivores will mate in specific seasons. Therefore, having horns all year round doesn't really serve a big purpose. It actually just drains energy. So the deer, you would almost think, have evolved a more efficient way of only growing the horns in time for rutting season when they are needed, and then shedding them thereafter. So interesting just to think about. Well, that's perfect timing. Brent's come across another brown furry animal. It's slightly different in size to the kudu, but still very exciting to watch. So head over to him and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
welcome back, guys. Not the large carnivore we're looking for, but it is definitely a carnivore, a little predator, one of my favorites, the dwarf mongoose. And they're not quite on what some of you have dubbed Mount Mongoose, which we found a few days ago. This is a very small little termite mound in the middle of an open area. And like they do in the morning, as it gets later in the afternoon, they're going to be basking and in the sun, getting a bit of warmth before the cool night, and they'll head down into those holes. Very, very cute. See, the light is fantastic, and you can see they're in this open area. And the blue of the sky is really, really incredible today. So even though they are basking, they are constantly alert. And obviously, I would say the biggest threat to dwarf mongoose is death from above. All the different predatory birds are a constant threat to dwarf mongoose, and quite a few of the first leopard cub kills I've witnessed personally, not to say it was that leopard cub's first kill, have been dwarf mongoose. And those of you who've been watching for a while know dwarf mongoose and I, we've had a little luck when it comes to leopards. We've often been sitting with dwarf mongoose and a leopard has wandered into us to come have a look what we were looking at, or just to come have a look at what the noise was. But they are... Oh, you see how his head moves so quickly, and that was just a starling flying. He just picked up the movement, checked very quickly. Very still, not much bird noise. Yeah, a Cape turtle dove. Some southern black tit in the distance. What else can we have? Oh, look at the little wax balls, James. To the left, down on the ground in the grass. Quite difficult to show these little guys. Quite often they fly away and flit away, but here they are feeding on the grass, in the grass seeds. And there's blue wax balls. Let me see if there's any other species. I could only see blue wax balls when I first looked. Quite often found feeding with firefinches, but I don't see any firefinches at the moment, only the wax balls. So a couple of years ago they decided to change the names of the birds. There we go. Starlings flying past. There we go, Birchill starling by the looks of things. Yeah. So there you go, those wax bills. And I was saying earlier that a few years ago they decided to change the names, a lot of people thought, and there's another fourth one that's come, a little bit of aloe grooming going on. Oh, for defleeing, removing possibly fleas or ticks that they might have picked up while they're out foraging. And, those waxbills, so the reason that a lot of the name changes was that the same bird was called by a different name in East Africa as it was to here. And it caused a bit of confusion. So they decided to revert to the first name that bird was ever called by, except some of the waxbill species. So even though the waxbill was the first and original name for them, the East Africans refused to let go of their very strange name for a little bird, which is a cordon bleu. So we still call them waxbills, and in East Africa they still call them cordon bleus, which is a very strange a name for a little bird. But that was the only one the East African and Southern African ornithological societies could not come to terms with. For example, just to give you an idea, we've always known as a bateleur, but in Kenya and Tanzania it's referred to as a short-tailed eagle. I'm quite glad they stuck with bateleur myself, far more pleasant name. Hi, Lynn from Michigan. Lynn would like to know, do mongoose use different termite mounds every day? Oh, James has found a crown lapwing and a red-billed hornbill out on the grasses, feeding in the late afternoon night. Lynn, they can sometimes, but they often do not. They'll have multiple sort of termite mounds that they utilize within their territory. They will obviously have favorites that they tend to prefer, but they don't necessarily use the same termite mound every day. If they do stay foraging in the same area for a few days, they might, but quite often they will move between different termite mounds. There's that lovely golden light on those mongoose at the moment. They look like they've heard or seen something. There's a little bit of focus there. I just think they saw that starling, the virtual starling, fly away. Hi, Natasha from Texas. Natasha would like to know the size of a dwarf mongoose. They are tiny, as I said, the smallest member of the order Carnivora in Africa. I would say, without their tail, they're the size of my hand. Obviously, with the tail makes them a bit longer, but about 9-10 centimeters in length without the tail. Defleeing his own tail there for a second. Lots of preening and grooming going on. I think we're going to leave these guys to settle in for the evening and see what else we can find. I'm going to make my way to the area where the Shadow and Sindile's tracks were last seen. There's another vehicle on their way here, so I'm going to have a quick afternoon meeting and see if there's any new information for us. Alright guys, I'm just going to talk to Darby quickly. Hello, I keep finding you everywhere. Have there been any updates? We still don't have comms with the side.
Just in below in the east, their trail's been.
Okay.
So
Ish.
it might go north. You never know.
Okay, that's good news.
Not too far.
How far about is it from?
It's probably about a click south of like Dam.
Perfect. Cool. Thanks. I'll probably have a look in the morning. Cheers. Thanks, Al. Have a good drive. So there's a little bit of interesting information. Mvula is about 1 kilometre south of Twin Dams. So definitely worth having a look in that area in the morning. Goodbye, little mongoose. Don't get eaten. So, who's feeling leopard lucky? As I was saying, really interesting, something to follow up on in the morning, that Mvula is lying up about 1 kilometre south of our southern boundary, pretty much opposite where Twin Dams is. So it's a bit far, I'm not sure. There's always a possibility you might move north this evening, but more than likely the best chance to find him would be to go look tomorrow morning. Ginny, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Ginny would like to know whether the mongoose would eat baby birds or birds. Given the opportunity, being a little predator, most definitely, but I think it would be quite difficult. Normally, they would definitely raid ground nesting birds' eggs, given the chance to, but I wouldn't say it forms too much of their diets. Most of their diets, if those of you can remember, we spoke about it, depending on the area that they're in, is made up mostly of insects. And in an area like this, from the information I've been able to find, nearly 80%, I'm sorry, not 80, forgive me there, 30, I think it was about 35%, oh, let me just get my jacket on, 35% of their diet in this area is made up of macro and micromydes termites and termite larvae. So little termites, very high in protein, so really good meal for an animal of that size. And then the rest of their diet is made up of quite a various bunch of different insects, and if they have the opportunity, small mammals like tiny fat mouse, and lizards and skinks and geckos and scorpions. But in this area, the majority of their diet is made up of termites. So also we've got a chance of bumping into that big herd of elephants we saw earlier. They were heading in this general direction. And hopefully, if we do, they've moved into a slightly more open area. Oh, nippy when we get down into these hollows. So we're right now in what is the core of Shadow's territory, and there was a report of her tracks in this area, so we're going to check this area quite carefully, and then I think definitely have a meander through to the airstrip and see what we can see. on Sunset Safari. Pamela would like to know whether I've ever seen a mongoose fight a snake in the Sabi Sands. I have not, Pamela, unfortunately. I have seen it elsewhere. A bit of a cheat. While I was a kid, my mother actually hand-reared 2 banded mongoose, which were a different species, a bit bigger. And sorry, I thought I heard something there for a second. But I have seen a banded mongoose fight with a Mozambique spitting cobra. That particular mongoose, his name was Lord Montague, and he used to often sleep in bed with us when we were kids. But I haven't seen a wild mongoose in the Sabi Sands fight a snake. I have seen meerkats in the Kalahari fight snakes in the wild with Cape cobras, just not attacking to kill them, but more to mob them, to get them away from their den sites. The mongoose that is made sort of fighting with snakes really famous is actually the Indian mongoose. And if any of those of you are fans of Rudyard Kipling, who is one of my favorite authors, there's a book about an Indian mongoose named Rikki Tikki Tavi, who was an adept snake hunter and killer. So I know that the Indian mongoose is the one who made snake wrangling most famous. The African mongooses do and are known to kill snakes, but I'm not sure if it's as common as with the Indian counterparts. But we're going to cross back to Scotty now, see what he's been up to, while we make our way towards the airstrip area.
Welcome back, everyone, and just in time to see the sun dipping below the horizon. It's a very still evening. There's hardly a breath of wind, and we've been stopped listening on the road where we had the last of the lion tracks. We spent about 15 minutes there, and sometimes stopping and listening is your best bet, because the roads can't take you everywhere. Some of the bush is very thick, so to drive around and check a place visually would be close to impossible. But by stopping and listening, you can often get signs from other animals, or even the lions could have started roaring. So sadly, no further updates there. I hope you enjoyed your sighting with the dwarf mongoose. They're such awesome little animals. And regarding a question I had early on, whether there's any monogamous, or how many of the animals are monogamous out here, we've got some feedback from some of the other viewers, and one is that Ellies from Washington thought Dick and Jackal will mate for life. Jackal could potentially, I think they do. Both side striped and black back do, so thanks for reminding me about that, as well as Klipspringer. The reason why I didn't mention Klipspringer is because we don't actually get them here, but they do occur nearby in other areas of the Sabi Sands. There's a few properties with rocky outcrops, and Klipspringer will live on these rocky outcrops and pair for life. And Gerry also said Klipspringer, so thanks very much for your feedback and help. And now we can, like I said, share information. Now another one is from Ginny, and Ginny said that dwarf mongoose mate for life. Now that could be the case, it could very well be the case. A part of me is telling me to query that further though, as I know there is an alpha male and female that will be dominance within a family of mongoose, but whether they pair for life, I'm not too sure. So thanks though, and that's what it's about. And that's the great thing about these interactive live safaris, is that we can solve problems and clear up any doubts immediately with your help. And I certainly have learned so much from having thousands of viewers on board the vehicle with me every drive, as opposed to just the regular 4 or 6 which we would have if we were guiding regular guests. And the more the merrier is certainly applicable in the safari's case. Some great feedback to hear that Mvula isn't far from us, but he is... Oh, well done, Andrew. Sorry.
It's okay.
Andrew was... caught me off guard there. I didn't expect him to go for that, but as I looked at the monitor, he was doing a good job. So that was a red-billed hornbill and a Burchell starling that flew off. I think it was mainly the red-billed hornbill that Andrew followed as it flew off. And as you can see, it's got a little red bill. It's a slightly smaller hornbill than the yellow-billed hornbill, which is another common hornbill that we have out here. And it's sitting in a marula tree. This is a good opportunity to help teach you, or any of the botanists out there, how to identify different trees. The marulas have got abnormally thick terminal ends to their branches. It almost looks like little fingers. They don't taper off to very thin twigs like regular branches. The only few thin twigs you'll see would have been the stems for leaves to grow off, and most of those leaves have fallen off, and the stems too will fall off, and just leave these finger-like ends to the branches. Like I said, that's probably about as thick as your finger. And other branches on most trees, as you will all know, will taper off to a very thin edge. Well, goodbye, Hornbill, and hello, Kathy from Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome on board with us. Kathy would like to know why we don't see another kind of hornbill out here very much, and that hornbill is called a southern ground hornbill. It is the cover model of my book over here, and they are far larger than the red-billed hornbill we've just looked at. Almost turkey-like, you could say, and spend a lot of time on the ground. They can fly, but they feed on the ground and will walk around huge distances looking for food. They're quite aggressive and can feed on animals like snakes, even little dwarf mongoose like you've just been looking at with Brent, frogs, baby birds, insects, you name it. They're quite capable predators. The reason why we don't see very many of them here is because they are an endangered species. There's only about 250 birds in the whole of the Kruger National Park. Now, we make up 60,000 hectares of 3 million. And in 3 million, there's only 250, plus or minus, and that figure is probably from a few years ago. But there's not many of them around. A large reason for that is because their nesting sites, which are cavities in dead trees, have been burnt, and you'd be obviously asking yourself, well, why have they been burnt? I mean, who would have burnt down all of the nests for these birds, or just the dead trees, really? And at one stage, conservationists thought it was helpful to burn the vegetation, clearing dead bush to make space for new, fresh growth. And there are certainly benefits to doing it, but like most things in life, in moderation. Now, people burnt areas to create fresh green growth and open areas which are easy to see in, which is great for game viewing, but in the long run, what they slowly learned is that they've been diminishing the amount of nest sites available for these ground hornbills. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is that they do take a long time to raise their chicks, and I think only give or have young once every 2 years, or it's a long process between raising chicks and having their next. Little Franklin making a racket over there. And at this stage of the evening, you can often get confused and think an animal may be alarm calling. They're simply getting their last little bit of excitement out the system before they bed down, I guess. There's a little bit of an evening rush. I'm just going to move forward ever so slightly. Well, actually, I want to continue moving because the subject that I was hoping to show you is orbiting at a rate that took it behind a cloud before I could show it to you, but it's not going anywhere, and we'll be able to find it and show it to you later. It's very fun. And that's full. I'll show you a little bit later, but at the moment it's hidden behind a cloud. Okay, well, we're going to continue our search for anything interesting, and it sounds like Brent's found himself a beautiful spot that he would like to share with you, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
He's linking. Welcome back, folks. Here we are, sitting at the western edge of the Arathusa airstrip. Been taking in a glorious African sunset. But there's two reasons why we're sitting in this exact spot. The last track I saw of Shadow and Sindile was in this area off a road in front of us, but they went off into the bush. So it's the right time of the day for them to be moving. So we're just sitting here quietly while we're watching the sunset, and we're listening, so that we think Shadow and Sindile are somewhere in this general vicinity here. So what we're doing is we're listening, hoping for an alarm call of some kind. Unfortunately, there's been nothing yet. I can just hear some rattling testiculars. And I'm sure James's favourite bird is going to be coming on cue a little bit later. And at that sunset we were looking at there, and you can see the northern Drakensberg, the northern Dragons Mountains, as it was named by the first Dutch settlers. Now, isn't that amazing, those clouds there? It almost looks like a painting, a Turner. It almost looks like brush strokes in the sky. And those are actually very fine clouds called cirrus, if I remember correctly. Very, very fine, sort of ice, a layer of ice almost, if I remember my cloud. It is a magnificent sight. It's hard to imagine that people used to drive ox wagons through those mountains, and it would take from Johannesburg to here, which now in a comfortable vehicle will take you about 5.5 hours, used to take them up to a month and a half to travel from Johannesburg to the Lowvelds. Hi, Kathy from Florida. Oh, we are being attacked by a Burchell starling charging towards us. We got a question from Kathy. Kathy said she went to a zoo recently and she saw a huge African hornbill, and she was wondering, it looks a lot bigger than the ones we see on safari. Kathy, it could be a couple of different species that are very big. We only get one of those really big species here, and James is busy showing you the moon, nearly full moon, but not quite yet. A couple of days, I'd say, probably next 2 days. But we'll have a look at the different possibilities of a hornbill species that it could be, if it's a very large hornbill. Kathy, if you could send maybe, we can have a look and you can tell us which one it might possibly be. there is a very the largest species which James and I saw on the Sunset Safari last night, which is the southern ground hornbill, and they are massive, about 100 centimeters in height, and it could even be in a zoo. It could be the northern ground hornbill, which is also was known previously as the Abyssinian ground hornbill. The other really big hornbill species that occur in Africa are all in the rainforest, and they're a little bit smaller than the ground hornbills, but just as massive. They get to about 90 centimeters, and those are the casqued hornbills. And you get a black cast and a yellow cast wattled hornbill. That the black cast I've actually seen before in Gabon, and that occurs mainly in the Central African forests, whereas the yellow cast, this one, occurs further into the west, from Cameroon around through Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, that area, whereas this one extends down into Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, and the Congo-Brazzaville, and the Central African Republic. So, Kathy, you let us know. It's either one of the casqued hornbills, and they've got that very distinct, huge casque on top of their beak, or it could be one of the two ground hornbill species as well. So, let us know which one it was that you saw, and then we can maybe go into a bit more detail. Hi, Jacques and Jane Fillion from Centurion. Welcome on the Sunset Safari. They would like to know whether we get the trumpeter hornbill. For those of you who are not sure what a trumpeter hornbill looks like, it is number 2, the trumpeter hornbill. I have heard them flying over. They wouldn't really be resident in this area. They prefer forests and riverine areas. I have heard them flying over. I know in the south of the Sabi Sands, around the Sand River and the Sabi River, they are resident in the riverine forests there, but not in our area. We don't have the right type of riverine forest. And towards those mountains we were looking at, the Drakensberg, on the foothills, and in certain areas there is a misbelt forest, and they are very common in those areas. So that's that trumpeter hornbill. Its call sounds very much like a baby crying, sort of a wah, wah, wah. And that's how I knew they were here. I heard them flying over going wah, wah. But that is the trumpeter hornbill. So it is possible that we might see them here flying over or hear them, but it is unlikely that they would spend any time in this actual part of the Sabi Sands. So, no alarm calls. There's literally almost not a sound, which doesn't mean there aren't any animals there. They are just choosing not to let us know where they are at the moment. So we're going to start moving on and see what else we can find. Marissa on Twitter is asking what is James's favorite bird, so I'm definitely not going to answer that on his behalf. James, what is your favorite bird? Remember to chat to the top mic.
My favorite bird out here at the moment is the white-browed scrub robin.
And I will definitely, Marissa, there we go. If we hear one calling, we will stop. They do often call at this time of the day, so we will keep our ears open for a white-browed scrub robin. Isn't that a quintessential African vista? Full moon rising lovely pastel colors in the sky, and a dead knobthorn. And a dead knobthorn. So shall we see if we can fly? Take off down the airstrip. Ah, maybe not today. I'm going to head back towards where those last tracks were. Maybe, just maybe, Shadow decides to grace us with her presence. Temperature's definitely dropping quite quickly now. Not quite as tough as James's nearly impossible tree quiz, but I think this might be quite a difficult one. So we can have a look at it. This one in front of us here. Very nice tree. Very pretty tree during the summer months. Wonderful sort of lilac flowers. I have asked you this before, but I gave you a very big clue. And I think I'll give you the clue again. So what tree is this? It is often found in the company of desperate housewives. So what tree is this? You can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. What tree is this? And the clue is it's often found in the company of desperate housewives. Welcome on the Sunset Safari. Harry would like to know whether I've seen secretary birds in this area. I actually have. I saw one a couple of nights ago, roosting in a tree not too far from the west here, and we have seen them on occasion on the airstrip. That is the only place I've seen secretary birds in this part of the Sabi Sands, but I have seen them quite frequently further south. Maybe we should get James to sing to the leopards. Maybe that'll make them come out. Yeah, a little bit forward for you there. We've got a male in Nyala off to our left. It's a bit dark, but we'll try have a look at him. And then I did see some females to the left as well, but they are in a bit of a thicket. Nice big adult male in Nyala. Very, very beautiful animal. This is one of the guys we're hoping was going to spot a leopard for us, and alarm call. Disappears off into the thickets. So if you guys are new and you might have just joined us, welcome. You are on a live African safari with myself and James. My name is Brent, and you are seeing what we are seeing live from wherever you might be in the world. And you are joining us. You're sitting on the back of our game drive vehicle, coming on a safari with us. We have had a little bit of a tough day. We've been working quite hard to try and find some rosettes, so some leopards, and we have come up empty-handed. The leopards at the moment seem to be on a bit of a domination of the guides, but fortunately, hopefully, we can turn those tables quite soon. So at the moment we've been checking in this area around here for a female leopard called Shadow, who's got a young male leopard called Sindile. Last tracks we had were just to the west of us here. Haven't found any tracks coming out. There is a possibility they could still be in this thick block. We've been standing by and listening. While we're doing that, we've had some spectacular scenery of the Drakensberg Mountains and the sunset, and a dead knobthorn in the moon, but no leopards yet, unfortunately. But we will keep trying, don't worry. To Sandy, Jean and Winland, who got the name of that tree correct. It is a tree wisteria. Now, I don't know whether you cheated and just used the clue, or you actually looked at the leaves and the bark like you were supposed to. But neither, it doesn't matter, you got it correct. A tree wisteria. So, we have exhausted our options on Arathusa, so we're going to start moving back towards Djuma, and while we are heading down the main cut line back towards Djuma, we're going to cross across to Scotty and Andrew and see what they've been up to, and we'll catch up with you a little later in the drive.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm sure you've been having fun with Brent. We found ourselves in a beautiful spot here, and I've got an old knobthorn tree which has created a perfect frame for the beautiful moon that we are experiencing tonight. And well done, Andrew, for getting you there so smoothly. It's a very long way away, the moon. It's about 280,000 miles away. And to put that into perspective, if you were to hop into your car now and head off towards the moon at, well, let's call it a plane rather, or your space shuttle. But if you were to travel at 70 miles an hour, kind of regular highway speed, it would take 4 months and 10 days to get there. So that gives you an idea of how far away it is. Something else quite interesting about the moon is that it's actually pitch black in color, and it's the reflection from light from the sun that glistens off this shiny black material, giving off a white color. And all the darker patches you can see are craters and old seas. And that's why you do get the different colors. Obviously the more depressed areas do not glisten and receive as much sunlight or at the right angle to reflect back as brightly as the rest of the moon, the higher lying parts. And the evening chorus this evening is really alive. There's been a lot of bird chatter, and it's interesting how it can vary from day to day. Some evenings are more busy than others, and the same goes for the mornings. So we are always kept guessing out here as to what's going to happen. We've been sitting and waiting now since you've been gone in an area close to where we last had these lion tracks. Again, listening can sometimes be the best weapon, even though your natural urge is to keep moving forward to look for something. If there's only so many roads, you can only check them every so often. And while you are driving around, you'd miss a far more useful clue like audio of alarm calls or the animal itself calling that you may be looking for. But you have to kind of try and calm yourself down not to keep going forward and searching. And let's be honest, even if the lion are far from here, or even if they are nearby, that's not to say a herd of elephant won't pop out from another direction, or a leopard. So that's what we've been up to. Haven't heard any alarm calls though, but it's been wonderful listening to all the birds calling. Some francolin were just calling out there. Another francolin has started up its engine now. It really is so peaceful out here, and a wonderful temperature, a very slight nip in the air. But I really love this time of year, and I can't help but stopping and listening deeper into the vegetation. It really is interesting, especially when you're sitting with other guides or anybody with good hearing, how you can really focus and hone your hearing into specific areas. And whenever I get a kind of glimmer of a hint of something interesting happening, I have to freeze to try and hone my hearing any better. But enough of that for this evening. I cannot wait here any longer. So let's go for a drive and see what we can find. Okay, well, Brent has got reports of a leopard somewhere, and I think he's making his way into that area. Now, there's no guarantees out here, but if you were planning on going somewhere, don't, because there's a strong chance a leopard could pop up in your screen at any moment. So that is something to look forward to, and it's just a brief update I've got, but definitely worth sharing with you. You always run the risk of disappointments, and it's something that guides often debate or battle to decide whether to inform guests that you're actually going to a sighting, because you do run a risk of the animals moving off and disappearing into thick vegetation before you get there, and then you have to try and explain yourself out of that one. So that's a little bit of the behind-the-scenes debate that guides will have with themselves and with other guides as to what they think the best is. Obviously, the elements of surprise is also great. So that is something that is factored into the equation, and it's often why in areas like this, the guides will communicate in a local language. Here it is Shangaan or Tsonga, and that way the guests won't know what animals they're speaking about. And then it leaves it up to the guide's discretion whether to let them know or not about what's going on. Now, it often doesn't take a lot of guests long to learn or Google the local names once they've found out that their guides are trying to hide this information from them, so you can get caught up. lights out. And look at the moon there. We're going to be able to do a Mvula moon combo here. And let's see how this works out. The tree you see silhouetted is a beautiful Mvula tree. You can tell quite easily because at this time of the year they won't have leaves, but also the horizontal branches. Beautiful. Not quite full yet, I don't think. Maybe one more day or 2 more days. And again, while we stop, it's just wonderful to listen and soak in all the noises around us. It's mainly Franklin that we can hear calling. Beautiful. Now, earlier on this afternoon we drove one of the less driven roads on the property, and it's called Hyena Road. I'm not sure why it's not driven that often, maybe because it's quite bumpy. But the lion tracks that I did see, the few lion tracks that I did see that headed off the road earlier, were heading in an easterly direction, which is towards Hyena Road. It's the next road that the lions would have come up upon if they had have continued east. So I'm just going to check it again. Let's look at this little bird here quickly. They are so pretty. And it's a nocturnal bird called a nightjar, and they often let off beautiful calls in the evenings. It's very difficult to distinguish the different nightjars out here. They all look very similar unless you open up their wings and tail feathers. You can tell a lot from the coloration of the underside of their wings or their calls. So I'm not sure which one this is. It could be a fiery necked nightjar. That's my favorite. And it lets off a really wonderful call. But from the nightjar we need to find another night animal, and over to Brent. Enjoy, it's going to be good.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm just going to go to Redwood and see if I can pick him up there for a nice view.
Welcome back, guys. So we got that report from the other guide when we were on Arathusa that Mvula was to the south of us, and he might come north. And lucky enough, he actually has come north. So we rushed as fast as we could to get here, and it looks like our leopard luck has changed a little. And we've now with Mvula, he's going through some thickets, and he has been moving around and calling quite regularly over the last few nights. So it's going to be interesting to see what he is up to tonight. Sorry guys, the other vehicles are just trying to get hold of me.
Yeah, I think Brent's got him there.
So I just need to tell the other game drive vehicles exactly where we are. So just give me a second and I'll be back with you. Hey Firm, I do have him. He is mobile, still mobile north, in my lights at the moment. Oh, there's a bush baby right in front of him. He's seen it and the bush baby's seen him. You might hear some alarm calls from that bush baby shortly. Sorry guys, the reason I killed the lights like that quickly, he looks like he's stalking something. So that's why we've killed the lights. We don't like to shine the light when he is stalking. We don't want to interfere. I think it's possibly the bush baby. There is enough ambient light that I can just see him. So I am watching him, and I'm going to watch his body language to see if he changes from stalk mode back to sort of marching mode. So you can see now, just make out those rosettes on screen. He's sitting down. I think it was the bush baby, and the movement.
Cool
Down. But I think it was the bush baby and the movement of the bush baby that attracted him. But he's just stopped and listening. I'm just gonna flash above his head, so I'm not shining on him. So not giving away his presence, just to try have a better look at his body language. But it does look like he's swapped out of that mode. So there he is.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm pretty sure it was that bush baby that was just up ahead in that tree right ahead of him, and the bush baby jumping from tree to tree. That movement is what would have attracted his attention. So it looks like we've, after a very quiet afternoon, a little bit of leopard luck now. He is moving through quite a thick block, and it is at night. We will try our best to stay with him, but unfortunately in these blocks sometimes it can be quite difficult. There are a myriad of little drainage lines a little bit further to the northwest in the direction he's heading, but we will try to stay with him as long as possible. I'm just going to move around so we can have a look at him a bit better. Look at that, a leopard in that sunset. Isn't that spectacular? That skyline with a big male leopard, the dominant male leopard in this area, moving through the bush. And you can see how he takes almost zero notice of the vehicles. As I said, it could be quite difficult to follow him. You can see he's going into quite a thick area. But as I said, I will try my best. Okay, he's gone into that stalking mode again. I'm just going to flash quickly, see in front if I can see anything. As I said, we really don't want to disturb. I'm not sure what he's up to. He is stalking, but I don't know if he's stalking those bush babies. He's there. He is stalking. I can't see whether he's stalking or not. I'm just going to sit quietly for a second. Hi, Janice from Boston. Janet would like to know, is Mvula in Tingana's territory? Because I was in Arathusa earlier today looking, early on the Sunset Safari, looking for Tingana. I've now lost sight of him.
I can hear him moving.
He is not. We are back on Djuma and very much deep in the core of Mvula's territory. I'm just going to move slightly. I've lost visual of him. changed direction slightly and was heading straight west almost towards the setting sun. If he goes too much further into these spike-horn thickets, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us to find them again. Our best option might be to head down to, there's a road just ahead of us called Nedwood Road. There we go, Bush Baby's alarm over there. So that's probably where he went. Oh, and I just got attacked by a very exuberant Acacia exuvialis. Whoa, whoa, oh, hang on guys. Sorry, I've been hooked by this exuberant exuvialis. I can hear a Bush Baby alarm calling over here somewhere. I'm just going to get through to this little clearing up ahead, and then I'm going to stop and switch off. See the Bush Baby that's alarm calling. I've got quite good eyesight. So there's the Bush Baby. So the Bush Baby's about to just catch its eye every now and then. So we're not only listening for like alarm calls now, because it's such a quiet evening. Just give me a second to turn R2D2 off. We're even listening to see if we can hear him moving through the grass. Can't hear anything apart from the Bush Baby. I'm just going to sneak forward a little bit. Guys, we're going to be bashing and crashing a little bit trying to find this guy. So we're going to cross over to Scott and we're going to try our best to try find him again. As I said, this is a very difficult block, but we will try. So in the meantime, we're going to cross over to Scott and we're going to catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome everyone, and how wonderful is it that Mvula came all the way onto Djuma and Brent was in the right place at the right time. Now, it can always be a little bit annoying when you've had a leopard on the bumpiest road on Djuma, and we've been taking it slowly because it is so bumpy. Stopping along the way, haven't heard much, and are going to continue with you now. it's also a good opportunity to allow Brent to really concentrate on trying to relocate Mvula, and I hope he does. He's such a beautiful leopard, and what are the chances that we saw the dominant male from Arathusa to our west in Ghana this morning, and Mvula, the dominant male, here on Djuma to the east of that. And there's been a lot of talk and debate about Tingana pushing Mvula further away out of his property. As I know Brent did mention earlier, the Anderson male from further west of Tingana is pushing Tingana towards us, and now Tingana is feeling pressure to push off Mvula. Now, we haven't seen any interactions, but it will happen at some stage, and I just hope we're there to see it. It is such a magical evening out here, and I'm so glad to have all of you with us. Now we're going to give Brent just a couple more minutes to see if he can find this leopard and really focus on that, and then we're going to cut back to him and you'll be involved in the final search if he hasn't found it by then. Now you may wonder why I wasn't shining my spotlight earlier, because the bush was so thick it literally would make no sense to shine the spotlights either side. It was almost impenetrable, but now it's opened up a little bit and the spotlight will be very useful in picking up the reflection of animals' eyes. We've just got a great question through from Josh, and good evening and welcome on board with us. Josh would like to know if male leopards' territories will overlap in areas where prey is more abundant, and that is possibly going to be a factor that contributes to how male leopards vie for territory and sizes of their territory, but they more importantly will also be thinking strongly about females. So it's not just about feeding themselves, it's their urge to procreate that will want them to have a big territory encompassing as many females as possible. But yes, food will certainly have an impact on the situation, and regardless of food or females, I think a lot of the time the territories do overlap. It's not like our properties that have defined fences or lines that belong to you. With the predators and a lot of the animals, the territories will overlap to a degree, and you'll also have lots of young animals like a young leopard or a young lion that's not ready to vie for dominance, that may be flying below the radar in and amongst a dominant leopard, just trying to avoid him at all costs. Good question though, Josh, and from myself, Scott, and Andrew and Chris, thanks very much for joining us, and thanks for your great camera work, Andrew. Thanks to Nikki, who's been in the director's chair and final control. And again, what a day it's been. A big male leopard this morning, Tingana, and now a brief glimpse of Mvula, and hopefully in the next few minutes Brent will find him. But again, a big thank you for following, and I can't wait for the morning safari. Don't forget, Chris will be out, and I'm not sure if it's Brent or James. It'll be James out with Chris, so we look forward to taking you on safari, and we'll see you then. Over to Brent.
He's a great lover of the termite plant in Mvula. I'm just going to do this because it's open.
You're live, you'll come up.
Hi guys, welcome back. We are still bashing and cashing. Sorry, I lost my ears. It got pulled out by one of these pesky bushes that are making it so difficult to find this male leopard. I mean, it's hard enough following them during the day when we can see everything, And at night, I mean, it just took a matter of seconds and he disappeared, and that bush baby was alarming. But we're going to try and listen again. Maybe something will give us a clue, but I'm afraid, I think we were very lucky to catch him just before he disappeared into these thickets. But it's been a fantastic sunset safari with a lovely little splash of leopard at the end. We've had quite a long drive. We covered a lot of ground searching for leopard today, and I know Scotty was doing the same out this side, so we definitely did try our hardest, and we were very lucky to catch Mvula there at the end. He has moved north onto Djuma, which is great news, which definitely means we can have a look for him in the morning on the the sunrise safari. His general, when he does head north, I think, guys, zoomies, keep a very close lookout on the Voyatella, the Djuma Cam. From here, he does quite often like to walk that way towards the dam. So I would definitely keep a lookout, you guys who are watching that cam. And we do really appreciate you guys who watch that cam and let us know what's going on there. But from James and myself, we've thoroughly enjoyed having you on the back of our vehicle, and we hope you're going to join us again for the sunrise safari. I know it is an obscene time for those in the North Americas and Canada and the States, but for the rest of you, please join us for the sunrise safari. It's been wonderful having you, and have a wonderful day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you on the sunrise safari. Good night.
Bye.